Hi, my name is Michael, and this presentation will be in English because it has become a global project with a global community. So I think it's important to reach everyone. My English is not the best one, so I have to apologize in advance. I basically learned English by watching a lot of sci-fi. Yeah, probably can hear that. VersaTiles is a project I worked for the last 1.5 years, and it's about web maps. And first of all, what are web maps? The basic idea is, for example, if you have a conference and you need a way of showing the people where a conference is, or for example, a project like Ernteteilen or Luftdaten, it's another open source project, or what was that? Freifunk communities in Germany. They all need web maps. This is an old project from Tagesspiegel where you can compare aerial imagery from 1928 with 2015, election results from Berliner Morgenpost, or some research projects, for example, visualizing, I think it was public transport data here in Germany, and also, of course, international projects like NASA's temperature change. All these projects need some kind of an infrastructure to have maps in the background. So the use cases are usually like journalism and media, universities and research institutes, NGOs and developer communities and other communities, but also administration and agencies, and of course a lot of companies like events, delivery, for example, pizza delivery, whatever, restaurant, banks, post office, where are they, transport companies, travel tourism. So maps become some kind of I think I have the feeling that whenever you have an address or a point, you need a map. You can think it from that point that everything you know, every person you know, every object, whatever, has a geo-coordinate right now, and probably makes sense to put it on a map if you want to show it. How do web maps work? Well, a map is basically just a big image with all the streets, for example. But if you want to cover the whole world, this image might become really big. So the whole idea of web maps is to split it into small tiles. And what you need now is a server that can handle all these tiles at the front end, knowing which tiles to download and combine them in real time, for example, in your web browser or in your application. This is basically the same technology for the last, I guess, 20 years, at least since Google Maps, for example, started in 2005. The only big improvement was that you no longer use PNG tiles, like small images, but instead they are actually vector data in there. It's not like an SVG file. It's actually a protobuffer blob with vector data in them, and they're rendered in real time on the GPU using WebGL, for example. This is really fast and really efficient, and you can really do nice stuff. How much do web maps cost? Well, I'll give you an example. There's a project called Hood Maps. It's quite fun. For example, here in Berlin, you can paint in the map where do the rich people live, and the hipsters and the tourists and stuff like that. And this project, I'm not sure, started I think in 2017, something like that. And well, people visited, but then later, years later, I think the end of I think in November 2023, it became viral. A lot of visitors came to the website, and then the owner got a bill about $11,000 from Mapbox. And that's a problem. These web maps are really, really expensive. Can make a small calculation. For example, you have a website with a map, and you have around 10 million visitors. So you have around about 200 million requests, including 140 million tile requests, around about 10 terabyte of data traffic. And if you would buy it from Google, it would cost you around $16,000. It's my best guess. I used the price calculator yesterday. Maybe I forgot some fees or some additional services you have to buy, but it's more like $10,000. Also like Mapbox, more like $30,000. Maptiler, $15,000. And if you would start your own server, maybe a small machine, powerful enough to handle all these requests. The cheapest way I found was self-hosted on Hetzner for just €7. And that's the problem. The gap between commercial services and an open source alternative is so huge, it would make perfectly sense to switch to open source. So why not use open source? And this is a really good question. Thank you for that. The answer is open source. There are a lot of great tools out there, all the materials you need, all the tools you need. You can do everything with that, but if you're starting to build all that together, it will probably look something like this, because we are not experts. A web map server is a really, really complicated architecture, storing the data, all the tiny elements for rendering and fonts and small symbols and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff you can do wrong. And here's where VersaTiles comes in. The idea of VersaTiles is that's essentially just a set of specification. So what we did is we specify which parts should be used, how they should work together, and define like specific data formats and specific whatever. So everything works together. We basically use the good solutions from the open source community. There really amazing frameworks out there that we used, and we replaced the problematic ones. Problematic means maybe the GitHub repo is no longer maintained, or the license has changed, or is problematic in another way. And then we developed also a lot of reference implementations. So yeah, but the core idea is it's not a big product you can download. It's more like a toolbox that you can deassemble and switch out every parts you like, because if you like it. With the VersaTiles assembly diagram is basically just 4 parts. First, the map data. Of course, you somehow need to render these map tiles. You need a front end. All of that has to be served by a server, and you usually don't want to put the server, well, naked in the internet. You need some kind of proxy, some kind of handling caching or TLS encryption and stuff like that. And we recommend that map data, of course, should be based on OpenStreetMap. This project is amazing, and so many details, and so accurate and yeah, up to date. And we download the data as the whole planet as a PBF file and convert it using TileMaker. Currently we're working with, or we're trying to convert it also with PlainTiler, also to fix some issues. Instead of open map tiles, we from MapTiler that has a CC BY license, so every map has to basically link to the product web page of MapTiler. We switched to Shortbread. It's another way of storing vector data into tiles, and it's free thanks to the GeoFabrik. And we also provide additional vector layers for land cover, hill shading, bathymetry. Bathymetry is basically hill shading in oceans, so you see how deep the ocean is. And instead of a database or anything else, we also don't use a container format like MB tiles or PM tiles, but instead we developed our own container format called VersaTiles. That's, in the beginning, it's a disadvantage because you have to reinvent the wheel at some point, but it has so many advantages that we pushed it forward. And the good thing is you don't have to know all of that. You can just ignore it because we provide everything on download.versatiles.org. You can find, for example, the OpenStreetMap planet as vector tiles, around about 50 to 55 gigabytes on a quarterly basis. So every 3 months there will be a new update. Also you find hill shading and land cover data, everything for free. Front end. There are a lot of front ends out there, but we definitely have to use MapLibre. MapLibre is a fork of Mapbox, and it's amazing, it's fast, it's flexible. You can do and hack a lot of stuff with that. And it's not just for web, also for iOS and Android, if you want to develop an app using a native plugin. We additionally provide repositories for glyph rendering. So if you want to render fonts On the GPU, the fonts have to be prepared in some way. There was a project called Node Fontnik from Mapbox, but they pulled the plug, so we have to re-implement it in Rust. It's really fast and even more precise than the original project. We prepared fonts, specifically fonts covering all the character sets around the world. So if you have city names in Chinese, Vietnamese, Japanese, Arabic, Hebrew, you can download them too. Also sprites, like little symbols for restaurants and toilets, and map styles. And we packaged everything neatly in a pre-compressed tar file in 3 versions: standard, developer, and minimum. And you can download them all as a release. Pre-compressed means that every single file inside the tar is pre-compressed, in this case with Brotli. It means that if the server has to serve an asset, it is already compressed. So you don't have to compress it on the server side for transfer encoding. Yeah, of course, we're using currently Brotli, and we're looking into set standard, depending on how many browsers support it. The next big chunk is the server. We have multiple implementation. One is a very high-performance Rust implementation, also providing all the libraries on crates.io with, like, for example, crate for different container formats, for image processing, for vector processing, and stuff like that. And you can run the server just with the command VersaTiles, then the subcommand serve. -s means static files, just front end, and OSM VersaTiles, and now we have a running map server. Everything is included. And this tool can not only serve, but also analyze all the data, like with VersaTiles probe to check if everything is correct, or there are some tiles too large or whatever. And you can also convert them from any container format, including VersaTiles, MB tiles, PM tiles, if you have a tar file of map tiles, and a directory of tiles. And we also have a Node.js implementation that's more like, it's better for hacking. Sometimes you want to hack some strange backend, whatever, or want to integrate it into something. Then Node.js implementation is really helpful. You can also find it on NPM. We have a special Google Cloud setup, specifically for newsrooms. 2 newsrooms in Germany using it right now. The idea is that you have a Google Cloud Run service and basically just serve static files from a bucket to the CDN, and it will handle chorus, caching, and compression, and stuff like that. So all you have to do is just upload your HTML and JavaScript and whatever, all your files into the bucket, and it will deployed automatically. But here comes the cool hack. If you add a VersaTiles file, the server will provide a full API that's basically a full map server. So for example, if you add the get parameter preview, you have a whole preview of seeing what's inside, and you can address every tile. So it's really good for example, if you make a lot of data visualizations. Yeah, so it's easy to deploy. And the proxy, if you want to run VersaTiles on a local machine, well, you don't need a proxy, but the standard architecture is you put it in a cloud, then you can use your CDN service, or if you run it on your own server, we're currently recommending using Nginx or the Nginx with caching, TLS, and certbot. We also have some documentation about that. And that's the whole idea. So VersaTiles is just split into 4 parts, and if for any reason you don't like something, just replace it. If you have your own MB tiles file, use that one. If you have your own front end, use that one. You can use your own server. The idea is that you can at any point branch out and do it in your way, and you can still use all the other parts. While we use this architecture, we noticed that a lot of use cases out there where you have map data combining with other map data, generating new map data and overlaying it with other map data. So we added a feature called VersaTiles Pipeline. And that's something really neat. So a pipeline file is usually, it's a little bit like Bash. You have an operation, in this case from container, and it has an attribute, file name osm.versatiles. So every tile will now be served from OpenStreetMap. And if you run the VersaTiles server or the converter, just point to the VPL file and it will serve or convert it in real time using all cores. But you can pipe these operations. So for example, if you have OpenStreetMap data, you can filter it, just use up to zoom level 10, for example, but you can also add, for example, filter bbox, stuff like that. You can use, for example, real-time operations on the vector tiles. So for example, using all the OpenStreetMap tiles, but remove all layers, poise and ocean, point of interest and ocean. So throw them out, and also remove all properties named name_de. So remove all German names to make the tile smaller, for example. You can also combine them. For example, you have OpenStreetMap data and you have some kind of an overlay. From merged vector, it will combine these tiles into a single one. So now we have multiple layers in each tile. And as I mentioned, you can convert it and also serve it in real time. Yeah. And I think since July, we're working on a side-branched version 1.0, where we also add GDAL binding. GDAL is a geographic database. I'm not sure what I can't translate, but basically it's a library for converting, reprojecting, and reading any kind of vector data. Include, for example, paris.vrt would be a file containing a lot of aerial imagery of Paris, and you can convert them into image tiles in real time. We have an operation like raster overview, so you can generate all the tiles with lower zoom levels, and raster overscale to add tiles with higher zoom levels. And you can stack that on top of satellite VersaTiles. And that means that now we have the possibility to generate like global imagery combining different sources. We're proudly presenting that we now provide satellite imagery worldwide. In the first version, it has a resolution of up to 10 meters. It's around 100 gigabyte. But we are currently preparing a Node.js repository where you can add your location, for example, the open data portal of your country to add aerial imagery. So the community can get all the free satellite data, combine it into one big one, and we can provide it as a download. As an example, here's Blue Marble. It still looks, to be honest, shitty, but we will improve the colors, improve the merging, and improve the data. But it starts with Blue Marble, and if you zoom in, you can see that the coastlines, they're switching to the Sentinel-2 data from ESA. And then at one point, for example, in this case, we added Paris on top of it. So we hope that in the next month, we can provide free satellite and aerial imagery for the whole world. It's free data. How do you deploy VersaTiles? If you want to run it from scratch, here's one way, for example, on Mac. Just use Homebrew to install VersaTiles. Then download the OpenStreetMap planet, or prepared vector tiles. Then you can download the latest front end. Then you start the server pointing to the front end and to the map data. But sometimes you don't need the whole planet, but just your region, because you're just a local project or whatever. So we also provide an alternative way. If you download the whole planet, it's usually like 55 gigabyte. But thanks to the VersaTiles convert tool, you can define a bounding box, for example, of Poland. And at bounding box border 3, it means it will download in every zoom level additional 3 tiles in all directions, so there will be no white space on your map. And then you will point as a data source directly to the website. So now he will be very efficiently make spatial requests on our tile data, so you can fetch everything and download it. So it takes just a few seconds to, for example, just download the data of Poland. To make it easier, we have also a tool called Setup Server, where you can choose what kind of operating system, how do you want to install it, select your map data, and stuff like that. And since I think June, we also have a Docker container with Nginx and Certbot. And just to show you what it means, yesterday I added a domain, FrOSCon.versatiles.org, and pointed it to a new server. I think just Docker was pre-installed. And now let's try to install our own map server. So first you go to the tool, choose Linux, Docker with Nginx, OpenStreetMap. Just take the region Bonn, standard framework, standard front end. We don't run it in daemon mode, but in interactive, so you can see what's actually happening behind the hood, under the hood. So the domain will be froscon.versatiles.org and mail@versatiles.org. And then paste it to console. So first he fetches the image. It's quite small. It's like 28 megabyte. Download the front end. Download the data. He's already finished. Now he's trying to fetch an Let's Encrypt certificate. That usually takes some seconds. And the server's running. And now you have a map server of the world where you can zoom into Bonn or St. Augustine was there. The screen is a little bit wide, but basically you can see what's happening. You can install your own map server in seconds. And as you can see, the parts that took the longest are fetching the Let's Encrypt certificate and finding St. Augustine. So we try to reduce the complexity to start a map server to the absolute minimum level. But there are more features. Of course, I forgot to mention everything is on GitHub. Every page, every documentation, everything is on GitHub. And we also try to link to the specific repository and file. So whenever you find a typo or feature or whatever, you can directly jump to the correct position. Currently, we have 36 repositories. As I mentioned, it's a complex project. We have a website, VersaTiles.org. We have the whole documentation online, including all the basics, some installation guides, all the specification, and we also have some showcases of other news media and companies and communities who use VersaTiles. If you have a VersaTiles project, you can add it there too. We provide a free map server. No strings attached. If you have some kind of an open source project and you want to use vector tiles, just use that one. It's not monitored. It's free. Use it as you like. We also have a playground with some examples in the front end. For example, if you want to add a basic OSM map or some style changes. To give you an example, the style is actually rendered in the front end. We have a versatile style object. Choose colorful as the default style. Point it to your map server. Choose the language if you want to have, for example, German labels. You can even change specific colors, for example, of the labels. And we provide also a lot of recolor options. For example, reduce the saturation, change the color. Everything should be green or blue or whatever. And you can find all the documentation on docs.versatiles.org. We also have a geocoder at geocode.versatiles.org. We're still experimenting with that. We try to find a good setup that's also usable for you. But from now on, you can also just use ours. Let's make some DDoS tests on that. We provide some tools, for example, how to set up VersaTiles server I showed you before, and the bounding box tool. We will probably add some more. We also provide Svelte components for front-end developers, for example, basic map, finding a B-box, locator map for just sharing a single point, and a map editor. That's a cool one. You basically have an editor. You can use it like PowerPoint to draw on any kind of map, adding markers, lines, polygons, circles. The idea behind it is that, for example, if you're working in a newsroom, you can generate your own map with whatever an event, like where to buy your Christmas tree or whatever. And in the end, you can share it by copying the link or have an embed code. And the funny thing is, all the data you see on the map is actually really tightly compressed into a base64 encoded string. So you don't have to save it on a server. So you don't need an account, or we don't need some kind of a Digital Service Act contract or whatever. Yeah, so it's really good for privacy. The next month, we have a lot of milestones. We'll publish the satellite data. We will add aerial imagery. We will improve the map style generation. We will also release the map editor. There's a little bit work to do. We migrate to plain tiler to improve the vector tiles. We will add more languages. Currently, we have just German, English, and the local language of the country. We have to improve that. We will add land cover data to the vector tiles. We will also publish elevation data, so you can, for example, make real-time flights in 3D through the Alps or Grand Canyon. We will release VersaTiles Studio. This is a tool that allows you to generate your maps and see it in real time, how it looks, and in the end, just convert it into a container. And we will also release a backend renderer. For example, if you're working for a newsroom and they need, for the print process, a vector file of the map. So you're not just a PNG screenshot, but, for example, an SVG file. Yeah. I didn't do this project alone, so there's a big thank to Jets. Well, while I'm building the bridges, he's actually building the piles and pillars. Without him, this project wouldn't exist. Big thanks to the growing community. There are a lot of people handling Nix OS packages, fixing bugs, adding new features. Currently, I think we have 300 contributors, so it's still growing. Big thank to the Medieninnovationszentrum Babelsberg, specifically for all the tools for newsrooms. And big thank also to NGI0 of the NLNet Foundation, so we can add all the new features in the next month. All problems are solved? No. The core idea of VersaTiles is that that it could be an infrastructure that everybody can use, every NGO, agency, or company. But unfortunately, if you want to have an infrastructure, it should be stable, and you shouldn't build on VersaTiles, because VersaTiles is built on top of me, like a 45-year-old guy, totally overworked and nerd, and so the only problem is left is me. So what we need is some kind of a stable foundation. The first idea, or many people ask, well, hey, you should just build a business like a hosting provider. The problem is that if you're a hosting provider, everybody can compete with you because you publish all the code. So in the end, you might want to change all the free license to a proprietary license. And this problem already happened with Mapbox and is currently happening with WordPress. So I don't think that we can find a business model where we will not compete with our open source vision. So I don't think that starting a business is a good idea. The plan A was to start this whole project as an open source project in the SWR Data Lab, Südwestrundfunk. Unfortunately, it was cancelled with no reason, and I'm not sure if they even know why. So plan B is still I think public media service would be a good point. Maybe ZDF, maybe a cooperation with BBC and France Télévisions, something like that. Another approach would be to create or join a non-profit organization, find sponsors. It's not easy to start a non-profit organization here in Germany. You could do that if you're a church, but not if you believe in open source. The plan D is, to be totally honest, find a new job and treat VersaTiles as a hobby. So I'm presenting what we have done so far, and we need your help. If you have any kind of idea how to stabilize this project as a long-term solution, and if you want to get in contact, we have mail@versatiles.org as mail address. Of course, you can join us on GitHub. We are on Mastodon and also on Blue Sky. We are not on X. It's too musky. So thank you very much, and I'm open to any kind of questions you have.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michael. So I have a microphone with me. Do you have any kind of questions? Nobody?
Oh, there's a question.
After you, I will give a talk about proton maps. And what's the difference between proton maps and VersaTiles, from your opinion?
Yeah. I think it's the most common question. I have two problems with proton maps. One, it's owned by the Proton Maps company, and I think the founder is a good-hearted guy. But there is no guarantee that not Mapbox or Google will buy this company for $1 million. And yeah, so I'm trying to find an infrastructure where we can ensure that everything is free and stays free, especially if you build your infrastructure on top of that. And the second thing is Proton Maps use case is usually like putting a map data online, for example, in the bucket and without any server and viewing it. It's really hard to make a scalable infrastructure on top of that because, for example, caching byte range requests, you can only do that if you buy, for example, pay for a very expensive CDN. But byte range requests doesn't have any kind of transfer encoding. So to put it from a different perspective, sometimes it's better to go a step back and say, okay, all these tiles are just single files that can be cached in a CDN or on a local cache. Our infrastructure scales at hell level. As it's really fast, and PM Tiles has a lot of lags. If you not have a big audience, I think PM Tiles is totally fine. But if you want to really think it as an infrastructure, you might want to do it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the talk. I was missing the beginning, so hopefully you haven't answered this yet. To give you an idea about a possible application for your tool, I think is, have you considered public safety organizations? So yep. I'm working with them in different projects at the moment, so I know that Malteser, THW, and all these other civil security organizations, they have a huge need for a usable map tool, but rather dedicated towards the use case. Yep. So have you explored this way yet? Well,
we had that idea. We never talked to them, but of course it runs on Raspberry Pi without any problems. But also we had the idea on implementing it in C on an ESP32. So you have basically like a $5 hardware running a full map server, just to make a point. Yeah. But I think maybe Raspberry Pi would be the better solution. Not sure. But yeah, thanks to the map editor, for example, you can, for example, if you want to exchange locations, specific disaster regions, and stuff like that. Yeah, openly up for that. Yeah.
More questions?
Behind you.
About a C server on ASP32, that kind of sounded interesting because I was more interested on how to run this on A device that struggles to run Firefox. So browser and viewer seemed a bit not ideal, especially for search and rescue, disaster management, etc. Because it would still be bound to a network.
Yeah,
and
of course, yeah.
Processing.
But you think you could think, for example, if you want to develop an Android or a web app where all the data is stored locally, so if you can find cheap Android hardware with 10 gigabyte. If you just work in Ukraine or Gaza or other disaster regions, it's quite small the amount of data you actually need there. So it's quite simple to run a local application. Then you need a way of changing data, what your use cases are. But yeah, and don't focus on the ESP32. It's a nice idea, but I think it's a little bit too nerdy for. Yeah. Here's a question.
Just a question to understand. So if you if you have a local map, for example, as you showed, and you have the tiles from OpenStreetMap, they are regularly updated, or how does this work in reality?
Yeah.
But you have them. You have the tiles on the server.
Yeah.
And how is the update process if something changes in OpenStreetMap?
Yeah. Currently, we create all the tiles worldwide quarterly. I think it's the first month of the quarter, so January, April, July, and so on. And we will publish it on download.versatiles.org. Currently, the Docker container fetches the data automatically. It would be quite easy to also add a shell script to fetch the new version and switch it every 3 months. The problem is that you actually need twice as much of storage because you have to save the old version and the new version at the same time. So we're not sure how to handle that. Maybe we should add a requirement. We should have at least 120 gigabyte of storage on there. But yeah, there are a lot of possibilities to do an automatic update.
But you could also do the update manually if you have changed your own proper things on OpenStreetMap and want to have it actual, so you can do that. Yeah.
For example, the Docker container will create a folder called data, and in this data folder you will find the tiles, the certificates, server logs, static files where you can add your additional front end, and there, for example, you find the OpenStreetMap tiles and just switch it out with a new version. Yeah.
More questions? Okay, so thank you very much once again, Michael, for the very interesting talk. Really good project. So please give an applause for Michael once again.